I'm Jordan Hatfield. This is Faster Film Critic. Today on the show, we talk Project Hail Mary with Chase Fugel and very special guest, host of the Rogue Tours podcast, Mr. Chad Durham. Project Hail Mary is a 2026 sci-fi epic directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, starring Ryan Gosling, Sandra Hüller, and James Ortiz. Just like Rocky, I can change how I sound.
I can sound like this.
Or I can sound like this.
I can sound like this.
Or I can sound like this.
Nah, you're stuck with this voice. Get in. We're going cinephile'n. Chad, dude, we are so excited to have you here.
I am very excited to be here. I am intimidated by the talent.
No. You're the real professional, buddy.
Yeah, I'm glad to have a new voice on here.
We're excited to have you. Thanks for coming.
No, I'm very glad. Thanks for having me.
Chad, you've always got a seat here at Faster Film Critic. Guys, I want to start here. There's a debate that's been brewing for 90-plus years, and it's getting pretty heated, and God willing, I want to settle that debate tonight. What do you guys think?
I'm already interested to hear what it is.
Yeah.
Is it better to watch the movie first or read the book first?
Okay, I've got a strong opinion about this.
Let's hear it, dude. What is it?
I think you got to read the book first. Because if you watch the movie first and then read the book, you're only going to visualize the movie, or at least I'm only going to visualize the movie. The characters, the cast, the way they all talk. You just don't get to create your own world that way. I just get stuck within the movie world.
I mean, that's valid. I teach a film lit class in high school, and one of the semesters is on adaptation. And one of the things that I always preach to them is it doesn't matter if the movie and the book are the same or they're different, because you can read one, you can watch the other. I know we wanted to settle the debate, but I'm pretty chill both ways.
Okay.
I know we're not going there yet, but I did in fact read Project Hail Mary and see the movie, but I read it so long ago that I'd lost a lot of it anyway. And I usually don't get very angry at the changes because I'm like, you do your thing. If I'm mad, I'll go back and read the book. So I'm not helpful on the debate, but I do think you can get away either way.
I was really hoping Chad would take my side on this. I thought for sure. That's why I invited him on. I thought he was going to take my side on this very argument. I'm a movie first guy, and let me tell you why I'm a movie first guy.
Interesting.
This is why I'm a movie first guy. Because A, as you know, there is always a tremendous amount of material in the book that can't make the movie. If I watch the movie first, I get a complete story. And then when I go back and I read the book, I get so much more information, it keeps me engaged.
You fill it in.
I fill it in. If I read the book first and then I go watch the movie, I'm always thinking, oh, they took that part out.
Sure.
Oh, they moved that part. Oh, they changed this part.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I have against reading the book first. The second thing is when I read the book, just like you said, Chase, you develop these characters in your mind. And if the book is well written, you have a strong emotional attachment to the characters. And so then when I go to the movie, I'm like, that's not my antagonist. My antagonist looked like this. My antagonist acted this way or thought that way or would have done. And so I spend 25, 50% of the movie just fighting with the artistic creation of the film because it doesn't match the artistic creation I created in my experience with the book. If you watch the movie first, you don't have that. You sit down to read the book, and you already know exactly what the character looks like, and you're just ready to go from page one.
And I say a lot of people agree with that idea because they go in with all of those preconceived notions. I don't know if it's laziness on my part, but I just don't bring that in. I'm always like, yeah, you do what you want to do. I want to see what you do. And then again, I can go do what I do again in the book.
I think that's mental discipline right there. I think that's a higher intelligence. I need to strive for that. It doesn't sound like we're going to settle the debate today. Good debate. Tell me, you read the book. Chad, did you read the book at all, Chase?
No, I haven't.
So I'm almost halfway through the book. And
because you went movie first, of course.
Well, actually, I didn't. I started with the book. I started with the book and wasn't able to finish it before the movie came out. And I'm not waiting on the movie. So I ended up seeing it. And it gave me kind of an interesting perspective because the first half of the film, I was book first. And the second half of the film, I was movie first.
Yeah, interesting.
That was kind of weird. But it is time go. Let's talk Project Hail Mary. What'd you guys think of the movie?
I had a good time. I was honestly surprised. We recently watched The Martian, or rewatched The Martian, which is another Andy Weir story. And they have similar protagonists in the sense that they have a funny sense of humor about things, even though the situation is pretty dire. And I really, really liked this film's approach to it a lot more than The Martian.
Interesting.
I had a fun time.
You know, I really enjoyed the movie. From a technical aspect, this film is absolutely incredible. Did you guys know they did not use green screens at all?
I heard I didn't know
Wow.
it was at all. I knew it was almost none or at all.
Yeah, my understanding is no green screens, zero. Crazy.
Incredible.
Absolutely incredible. They shot digitally, then they printed it on film, and then they rescanned the film in to digital.
Wow.
To try and get some warmth back into the digital process that is really cool, man. So technically, the film was
Yeah.
absolutely stunning. And I have nothing but respect and appreciation for how the film looked.
Well, Greg Fraser shot it.
Yeah.
He's an incredible cinematographer
Yeah.
or director of photography. And I think a lot of what you said here, Chris Miller and Phil Lord have directed some good stuff. The Lego Movie, 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Yeah.
And they got fired from Solo, as I'm sure a lot of people know. But I thought this was by far their best directing as far as controlling everything from the beginning to the end. And the stuff you mentioned technically, like a lot of times in a movie, you will feel like, okay, that looks a little CGI or that, especially with a character like Rocky.
Right.
And I thought everything just looked so good and brought you in, even though we're living maybe a little bit outside the realm of some realism. It felt so well realized. I think that Chris Miller and Phil Lord, to me, went up an echelon here as far as like what they can do as directors, even though I adore what they produce, like Into the Spider-Verse. And I think the Lego movie is one of the best animated movies we've had. This, for me, was a new level for them.
Yeah.
And I think you touched on why. Just some brilliant stuff.
I would agree. Yeah.
That elevated what could have felt like more of a we're just doing blockbuster things here. And that just brought me in a lot more.
I love the fact that they committed to practical effects early and they stuck with that through the entire production. Rocky was practical. He was printed 3D. And there were 5 puppeteers controlling him throughout this film. And
He looked great.
he did look great. And James Ortiz, by the way, who was the head
voice.
puppeteer.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he originally wasn't going to be the voice. He was brought in to be the head puppeteer. And as they worked with him, they realized very quickly James Ortiz is Rocky. And he knows what Rocky would say and how he would say it. How are we going to cast someone else to voice him? So they ended up using James Ortiz to voice him as well. I thought that is just really, really cool. And from a filmmaking standpoint, again, I just have so much appreciation for that.
Yeah, his voice work was great.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how they got it to work so well. I mean, obviously you touched on it, I guess, too, because you knew the character so well. But it didn't feel gimmicky, funny enough, but also seemed to feel right as far as the translation goes of the computer. Like it worked really well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This is the second biggest non-franchise movie opening weekend in the last decade.
Wow.
Oppenheimer being number 1.
Wow.
It's Ryan Gosling's highest rated film ever, and it has already reached the Letterboxd top 100 films of all time. It comes in at 89.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Crowd pleasing in the truest sense of the word, right?
Absolutely. 94% critic approval on Rotten Tomatoes, 96% audience, and 4.4 on Letterboxd. This film is just blowing people away.
And shout out, by the way, to Ryan Gosling, who has to do a little bit of the like Tom Hanks in Castaway, Will Smith in I Am Legend. And I know he is acting with a puppet a lot of the time, but where it's just him. And it helps that he's, one, such a good actor, and two, so well liked, because he has to carry a lot of those emotional moments.
Yeah.
And yes, James Ortiz, amazing job. But Ryan Gosling really has to carry you through. And I think that helps with that, again, crowd-pleasing aspect.
Absolutely. And big props to Drew Goddard, by the way, who wrote the screenplay.
Who also wrote The Martian,
Who
by the
also
way.
wrote The Martian.
And Cabin
That's
in the
great.
Woods.
Hey, Coulter loves that film.
And Bad Times at the El Royale.
So I didn't know that.
He's a
Yeah.
pretty good writer, but I thought he had written even more. And when I went and looked, the amount that he's written, it's pretty small, but almost everything good. It's a solid script.
One thing he said about this script that I thought was really interesting is he said it's a screenwriter's nightmare. He said a screenplay gets roughly 5% of the word count of a novel. And in this film, the main character is alone for a significant portion of the time. The co-star doesn't speak English, and he doesn't have a face. Like, that's pretty daunting.
And it's nonlinear.
And it's nonlinear.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty daunting. From a technical standpoint, this film is absolutely amazing. From a screenwriting standpoint, I also think the film is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But guys, forgive me, I don't think the entire experience is amazing. I think it's good,
All right.
but I don't think it's amazing. There are a couple things that I struggled with, and I know that most people are going to disagree with me. That's fine. You can tell me I'm wrong. But one thing that I really, really struggled with was the tone of this film. Chase, you mentioned earlier that You just watch The Martian, and The Martian brings in some comedy, and this did it better than The Martian did. And I think it did it worse. And I think it's not because it wasn't funny, because it was funny.
Yeah.
But I felt the tone of the film was far too playful for what the material needed. I mean, we're potentially dealing with the end of humanity.
Yeah. 50% of the population.
50% of the population to 100% of the population at some point, right?
Right.
I mean, the world is going to die. All humanity is going to die. And it felt like the tone of the film was often more of a buddy comedy between Ryan Gosling's character and this little rocky octopus dude,
Well,
right?
do you think sometimes the reaction in the face of daunting odds like that as the characters is to be a little more playful sometimes? Or is that not, you felt like it was outside the realism and more like we want to make the audience laugh, so we're going to do these things, as opposed to those characters, especially Ryland Grace, being like, this is how I'm dealing with these high odds?
To me, it felt much more like they were trying to make the audience laugh. I made that same argument for The Martian. I felt like
too.
Matt Damon played that well, right? He was often making jokes to keep his own spirits up. Here, I feel like Ryan Gosling, who, by the way, is a great comedic actor.
Yeah.
He is charming and believable and funny.
Shout out the Nice Guys while we're here.
Nice
Anyway,
Guys.
Go on.
Love Nice Guys, absolutely. He's great in Nice Guys, and he's great here as well. I think his character was just a little bit too much bumbling idiot. I mean, it wasn't him cracking jokes. It was him tripping as he walks through a doorway, or banging his head and making a scene, or jumping in the pilot seat and freaking out because he doesn't know how to fly the aircraft. And there was just a little too much playfulness in the writing.
It's really silly.
Yeah, it is silly. It's lighthearted, and yet he's supposed to be one of the more intelligent scientists that we have. And the fate of the entire human race depends on his success in this mission.
I wouldn't say one of the most intelligent people they have. He's almost kind of a savant. He knows everything about this field, but it seems like in the rest of the world, he doesn't really know what he's doing. I thought that it worked a lot better. His humor was often characterized by like avoidance and anxiety, and even though it was silly and a little bit bumbling, I think later on in the film when we find out he is kind of a coward. Like he was not going to do this mission out of fear. It starts to all make sense a lot more than Matt Damon's character did for me.
All right.
I thought that his character was a little bit too optimistic without seeing the other side of him. I felt like there was a lot more psychological depth that was being left out there. I think Matt Damon's character in The Martian was probably going through a much darker time, and it seemed just a little bit too light. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. And I think Project Hail Mary gets that balance and has a lot more complex of a character.
Well said. You know, I do think that part of this tonal problem that I have with this character is that in the book, he came across as very intelligent. I would describe him as far more serious, far less goofball. He didn't want to go on the mission then either. But in the book, he is a very intelligent individual. At least that's how I saw him. And Ryan Gosling's character, his portrayal of this character, seemed a little bit more like a goofy, intelligent pothead as opposed to an intelligent scientist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So reading the book first again hurt you.
Maybe.
Once again.
Yeah.
No, as you said.
Yeah,
As you said.
I'm-
You were very honest about that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, because I did read it, but it was a couple years ago. And it sounds like this stuck for you because you were bringing in a little bit, maybe not all, but a little bit of what Andy Weir wrote.
Yeah.
And then it kind of hurt the experience.
Again, I am on the outside of this in a big way. Like, people are loving this film. I know I'm not the only one that struggles with the tone of the film. I have definitely have heard of other people with very similar complaints, but that was my experience when it ended. And several times throughout, I was like, wait a second. Ryland Grace is a very intelligent and put together individual. Why are we tripping over stairwells and banging our head and freaking out in the pilot seat like I would, who has no experience
also,
whatsoever?
To give him the benefit of the doubt, he didn't remember anything, and it was all he was pretty impaired at that time. Maybe pothead is a good way to classify it because his memory is all just gone.
Of course, and the character in the book also doesn't have his memory, but it's handled there so much better. It's handled there intelligently with nuance. You know, he wakes up and he doesn't know who he is or where he is or why he's there or what he's supposed to be doing, And you're learning about him as he's learning about him, not only in the present, but also his past as his memory comes back. But he's never a bumbling goofball. He's always like, I know this information, and I don't understand why I know it, but I know it. It's there. He's still smart. But of course, due to time, the movie had to cut a lot of that.
Yeah, they sped that up a lot.
They had to, right? That would have been really, really hard to depict in 2 hours and 35 minutes and still get the rest of the story across. But, it was just, it feels like a different character in the movie and in the book.
Yeah, I knew they sped it up. It's one thing that maybe, I don't know if we disagree, but I thought Drew Goddard did a pretty good job with, I got to speed a lot of this stuff up, but I still need to give it some time. And I'm not even specifically talking about the beginning, but some of the astrophage stuff and some of the Rocky and Grace kind of learning each other's languages stuff and all, in some ways. And I liked the way that he had sped it up a little bit. I can be fairly critical of movies that are 2.5 hours long or 3 hours long. Like, I still think Scorsese needs to cut his movies more.
Ooh,
I mean,
those are fighting
that's a whole
words.
other conversation. But I thought they did a good job of using every moment. Like, it kind of flew for me. And I know this is tangential to what you said, but I came in with my 2 daughters and my wife, and we were like, okay, 2.5 hours. And it flew, but they gave a lot of time. Like, I never was like, this is too long. I was like, Lord and Miller and Andrew Goddard got us where they needed to. However, I do think that some of that suffers for sure because they can't let it breathe as much. But I thought they let it breathe enough to get us there and use all of the 2.5 hours to make sure we got enough of that.
I would largely agree with that when it comes to pacing. I mean, obviously them learning each other's languages was sped up very quickly in the movie, but it's a movie. And I don't want to sit there for an hour and a half and watch them try and figure out how to communicate. I mean, we get it. Let's move on with the story.
Yeah.
The one other thing that I struggled with that I want to talk about is Rocky himself. He felt to me like an engineered crowd pleaser and less of like an intelligent alien presence. He seems like this cute little cuddly guy that you want to buy the plush Rocky stuffed animal to snuggle with. Like, he's just that cute little lovable figure. And that works very well for the comedic tone, this buddy comedy film that I kind of see this as. But again, it just was not what I was expecting. I was expecting an alien figure who was intelligent. There was one scene in the movie that really highlighted this criticism for me, and that is when the ships meet in the film. You've got Ryland Grace, who jumps in the pilot seat of his little ship, and he's like fumbling around space, and he can't figure out how to fly the thing because he's not a pilot. He's told us that 15 times already. Fumbling around, and you see his spaceship, figure S's and bouncing all around in space as he's trying to figure it out. And you see the alien spacecraft so elegantly move forward and move back and follow him. And then pretty soon the alien spacecraft starts to copy him to try and connect with him somehow. And to me, what I saw on screen in that moment is the humans are idiots and the aliens are far more intelligent. That's what this scene depicted to me. And then when we meet the alien, that kind of flips. And all of a sudden, this goofy, silly, funny scientist becomes the more intelligent being. The book, Ryland Grace is the scientist and the alien is the engineer, and they work together to solve this dire problem. Here, Ryan Grace becomes the scientist, and Rocky becomes nothing more than kind of this lovable, adorable creature.
So you feel like he didn't seem as smart from that moment on, if you will.
He felt like an engineered crowd pleaser. That's the best way I can put it. He felt like he was engineered to make the audience go, oh, he's so cute. We love him. And that didn't really work for me. Again, that works for the tone of this buddy comedy that I see Project Hail Mary as being. But it didn't work for what I think the material needed. I think this material needed something more serious, needed something more grounded. That was the tone of the book. And it feels like the movie took the tone to a far more comedic place. And I don't think that was ever the intention. That's my complaint.
It did lean into the little expressive guy trope a whole lot, but I liked the way that it did it. I didn't think that it was too overbearing. It still hit those marks, having the broad appeal, the merchandising power, and an emotional shortcut without heavy dialogue, but I feel like it earned it. It felt unique enough. It didn't feel like another Baby Yoda as much as a lot of other films do when they implement characters like this. I enjoyed it.
I like that comparison just because I have not watched much of The Mandalorian, but every time I see the trailer for the movie or anything, I'm always like, oh, they took Baby Yoda in such a far direction. I think the balance worked better for me.
Okay, good.
Because I'm not saying that.
As it did for most people.
And I'm not saying that you're wrong at all, but I am saying, like, I felt like, oh, yeah, Rocky's very intelligent. But yes, they also gave some of that, you have called it correctly, buddy comedy aspects,
Yeah.
for sure. For me, it balanced a little bit more as far as, okay, we've got Ryland Grace, and he's struggling with some things, but we can also see how intelligent he is and him trying to find the humor when he can. We've got Rocky, who's incredibly intelligent, but also doesn't understand some of the tropes we see and doesn't have a world like we do, so we get some of those silly moments where he's seeing what the beach looks like or where he's phrasing things in a way that are somewhat funny because we're hearing it translated.
Right.
But I did feel more of a balance. But I definitely think Drew Goddard, Chris Miller, Phil Lord, they were leaning, hey, we got to make sure that if Chad Durham takes his 18-year-old daughter and his 13-year-old daughter, that they're also understanding like a little bit of the science, quote unquote,
Yeah.
and getting what they want to get. I agree with that. But I think I felt a little more like the balance was enough. We got enough of the serious stuff. We got enough of the novel to also be okay with some of those buddy comedy elements.
Yeah, and most people, the vast majority of people, clearly agree with you on that, Chad. They felt like the balance was right. Maybe my problem was expectation. Maybe I should have gone into this film thinking, hey, this is a family-friendly PG film, and I wanted something more adult-targeted, rated-R film. Maybe that's more what I was looking for. But and I did like the humor in it. You know, I like it when a serious movie interjects some comedic relief. It brings
levity.
Yeah, let you breathe a little bit.
And I think that absolutely would have worked here. I think it just took it too far. It wasn't just there were comedic elements. It was the entire tone of the film felt too comedic, too lighthearted, too fluffy.
So I have a question with that. As far as the conclusion of the movie, I'm a crier. That's what I do in movies.
I am too. I'm
And
embarrassed by it, but I am too.
I wonder how moved were you guys ultimately? And we've heard, obviously, Jordan, some of your, like, the drawbacks and things that you've seen. Did it ultimately work for you thematically in the end? And same to you, Chase, like, when it ended, were you like, no, I was moved by this, I was invested emotionally? Or did you feel like, no, they were taking a lot of shortcuts and using Ryan Gosling in that way to just try to manufacture us there?
I felt like it was pretty emotionally earned. The ending didn't get me so much as, honestly, the karaoke scene did. I really liked the emotional weight of the karaoke scene where she's just singing The Sign of the Times by Harry Styles. I don't know what it was about that. Just the loneliness of those two characters, the time that it hit, the way that they weaved it in with everything else. That was a nice moment. The ending didn't hit as hard as that.
I would absolutely agree. You know, that was the most emotional, heavy part of the entire film for me. And I think the reason why I wasn't so touched emotionally by the ending is because I didn't buy into the relationship between Raylan Grace and Rocky as much. And I couldn't buy into that relationship fully because I felt like Rocky was just a crowd pleaser. I recognized that they helped each other. They even saved each other. But Rocky never felt like an intellectual equal. He felt like he was just a cuddly pet that was there to, please the audience. And so by the time the end comes, because I wasn't fully invested, it just didn't hit as hard. But for you, it sounds like it worked.
It definitely did. And I loved, shout out Sandra Hüller, who does amazing in the Sign of the Times scene, 100%. And I was into their relationship. And I think you already knew from what I said that was the thing that brought me home, if you will. There were multiple times, I think two, to be fair, where I teared up. And I didn't weep or sob or anything.
Sure.
But I teared up, and most of them were that relationship between them. Well, little things, and yeah, sure, manufactured things that involved hugs or involved
so when you
emotion.
Say when you say between them, do you mean between Ryland and Eva or between Ryland and Rocky?
No, sorry, Ryland and Rocky.
Okay, I'm with you.
Those ones on the ships and their relationship, like that stuff did hit for me. And so the moments when they might be, saying goodbye and trying to get to know each other, and when tragedy may strike and we're not sure if tragedy has struck, those ones all did resonate for me because I didn't push it away because of, like, it didn't push me too far with the buddy comedy aspects. So I was still invested in those. But I love that we gave the shout out to the karaoke scene because that was quite well done.
I agree. Very well done. Let me ask you guys this question. Let's say that you're Eva Strat and you know that the world is going to die and all of life on the world is going to die. And in front of you, you find a scientist in Raylan Grace. and you realize that the entire fate of humanity rests on his shoulders. And you've got this mission for him, and it is your best effort. It is your Hail Mary play to save humanity, and he doesn't want to go.
I already knew where you were going.
Do you force him to do it?
I had this same conversation with my mom, who I saw the movie with. She thought that Eva's character was greatly unjustified in that decision, and my mom hated her for the rest of the movie because of that. But I said, without a doubt, I would tranquilize Ryan Gosling and put him on that ship.
I know.
No guilt.
Is it bad for me to admit I'd probably tranquilize Ryan Gosling to come hang out with my family? But funny what Chase said, because my wife and I had this same conversation afterwards, because I had not been as affected watching the movie. And I know that I had somewhere that moment had happened similarly in the book years ago when I read it. But I was not as, I guess, similar to Chase. Like, I was you, Chase, as well, and my wife was your mom, because she was like, I can't believe, like, they villainized her then and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't know if they fully did. Like, if we were supposed to necessarily side with Strat, I don't think so.
Right.
But at the same time, they had given us enough of Grace making good, sort of kind of buying in because he had to, because he was just there and you got to try to survive, that I felt like, not that they excused her, but they gave us enough that for me, it didn't emotionally shatter me or I go, oh, how dastardly that she did that. I didn't feel that. And until my wife and I talked about it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess some people, and even my sister texted me later, yeah, how'd you feel about her, just getting him on the ship? And I was like, oh, it didn't hurt me that much. And maybe I had just already been, hey, he's there, he's making do. She probably shouldn't have done that, but at the same time, she felt like this is the only thing we can do. And I think in the book, they're a little more clear, and you guys can correct me if I missed this in the movie. They're a little more clear in the book that she has legal immunity and she can do whatever the heck she wants. And
Yes, that's true.
we understand her leeway a little bit more when that happens in the book.
Yes.
And in the movie, I'm not sure that was as clear, so it did make it feel a little more underhanded and kind of morally repugnant. But I mostly didn't feel that. I thought at this point, we already know he's there. And so we know that she did it and she was sacrificing one person's life for the good of the world, but we can see that he's come to a slightly better place now and maybe not excuse her, but kind of excuse her.
So I definitely see it as a moral conundrum. I think that to tranquilize Ryland Grace and put him on the ship is 100% immoral. But I also think it's a situation where doing the immoral thing makes the most sense. And so I'm for it too. Tranquilize the bastard. Throw him on the ship.
Yeah.
Do it.
I don't know how you don't.
If they had put that moment earlier in the movie, I think we would have interpreted it differently. I know I touched on that already, but I think that's what partially brings us over to tranquilize the bastard.
If Ryland Grace would not have made it, if he would have died, would you still feel the same way?
No, I think I'd feel different.
I don't know.
Thank goodness for happy endings, right?
Yeah.
Well, the time has come, guys. Let's go ahead and rate Project Hail Mary on a scale of 1 to 5. What do you give it?
I'm going to give it 4 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Some of it feels a little bit silly, and you have to suspend a certain amount of belief at certain points in time. But I think the film narratively and emotionally earns that, especially by the end. I had a good time.
Yeah, I don't want to be too repetitive on what Chase said, but I really liked some of the pristine and thoughtful cinematography with the angles and stuff that they use, which sounds kind of silly, but to show how his life got flipped upside down and to give us the idea of space, I thought worked really well. And though they get a little bit cheesy, they don't push, in my opinion, too hard. I thought a lot of the sympathy, I thought a lot of the big moments were earned, and I did not feel like the humor was too much. And plus, I am a sucker for Ryan Gosling, and I think what Goddard, Lord, and Miller found was a really, really good balance, and I also gave it a 4 out of 5 because I thought that they just found the right way to do it. It's going to make a lot of money, and a lot of critics are going to say, you hit the sweet spot here.
I'm glad you guys love this film. I'm glad everyone is loving this film, and there's a lot in this film that I love. I love the premise. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The visual effects are clean. The production design is strong. I think the movie is a clever and lighthearted entertaining science fiction film, it just failed to hit me with enough force to leave a lasting impression. Again, my issues are mainly with the tone. I also wanted to see more of a sophisticated alien creature, something that's more on the same intellectual level as Ryland Grace, at least Ryland Grace from the book and not from the movie. You know, Ryland Grace is the scientist, Rocky is the engineer. They're intellectually equals and they work together to solve these problems. I think that depiction would have done the film some good. I do not think this is Ryan Gosling's greatest film. In fact, I don't even think it's his greatest sci-fi film. If you guys haven't seen First Man, check that one out. Great movie. I'm going to give Project Hail Mary 3 stars, but we want to know, what did you think? Please tell us.
If you want to watch another alien make contact with humans in a humorous, slightly offbeat way, I'd point you to Megamind from 2010, directed by Tom McGrath. While it's often taken at face value as a kid's film, it plays with identity and subverts familiar tropes in some genuinely clever, unexpected ways. For me, this film is a consistently fun watch. I'd definitely check it out.
Thank you for listening to Faster Film Critic, and please join us next week when we talk the drama starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, Cinetrack, and Instagram. Email us at fasterfilmcritic@gmail.com. Hit us up with questions, comments, feedback, review requests, and share this episode with your movie-loving friends.